Over 4 decades, ITV has traced the growth of a generation, revisiting the same children every 7 years.
I'd like to be able to have a happy family.
Following them from the hopes of their teenage years to the new aspirations of their 20s.
If you think that getting married, as far as we're concerned, is a case of going to work, coming home, cooking tea for hubby, going to bed, coming, getting out, going to work, you're totally mistaken.
How will they fare from 35 up next Wednesday at 8 on ITV?
On the ITV network, this is Thames Television, where we now join the studios of ITN for the national and international news at 10 o'clock.
Unionists tell Major we'll talk, but there are still problems. Man who tackled a mugger is cleared of murder. Brussels wants to stub out tobacco advertising by next year. 40 companies bid millions to own a part of ITV. And Manchester United beat Barcelona in the Cup Winners' Cup. Good evening. Talks on the future government of Northern Ireland are on again, with the parties in the province due to sit down together in Belfast on Monday. The Unionist party leaders saw the Prime Minister in Downing Street this afternoon after the take-it-or-leave-it ultimatum they'd had from the Northern Ireland Secretary, Mr Brooke. That was about the next round of the talks when the Irish government's to get involved. The Unionists say there are still problems with that stage. Mr Major told the Unionists that political stalemate would just open the door to violence.
The Unionist leaders flew from Belfast studying their documents and complaining about the Brooke ultimatum. Apart from the squabble about where the second strand talks involving the Irish government were to be held, Mr Brooke had suggested there be an independent chairman, and they were unhappy with this. The Unionists had issued a statement before the Prime Minister even arrived at Downing Street, saying they were prepared to start the first strand of inter-party talks on Monday. Mr Brooke was irritated by this and questioned the need for the two party leaders to meet the Prime Minister. Within less than 2 hours, the Unionists had received assurances about the independent chairman, and they formally agreed to Ulster as a venue. They said inter-party talks could now go ahead.
Mr Brooke has accepted that. It's up to the other two parties to say whether they're accepting it.
Do you think the inter-party talks will take place on Monday then, Dr.
Yes,
Beasley?
yes, definitely.
When Mr Brooke emerged, he clarified the position, saying there was agreement in principle.
I shall now be consulting the other parties, the parties to the first strand, and likewise the Irish government, as to whether, in their view, that constitutes a basis on which we can all go forward in the way that I hope we can.
Mr Brooke's formula was released tonight. It's based on the premise everything is on the table. Strand 1 should start on Monday, involving all the Northern Ireland parties except Sinn Féin. This will discuss devolved government. Strand 2 is the bigger problem. The Irish government joins the talks, but there's still to be further agreement on venues and the independent chairman. Some of these details are still being questioned by the Unionists. Strand 3 is the British and Irish governments planning their future relationship with a replacement to the Anglo-Irish agreement. At a Unionist press conference, Dr Paisley rounded on Mr Brooke, accusing him of changing the chairmanship of Strand 2 without consultation.
Suddenly, the next day, he had changed his stand on that particular attitude of the chair. That had never, ever been a question.
The particular Unionist preoccupation was that if we were going for an independent chairman, who might well be from outside these islands, that we weren't putting the issues of Northern Ireland up to international arbitration, and the Prime Minister gave them obviously categorical assurances on that point.
The Unionists are also trying to blame Mr Brooke for the deadlock by introducing the venue and chairmanship issues before Strand 1 of the talks. A government source said tonight the situation was messy. In the meeting, the Prime Minister said if there's political stalemate, it will open the door to violence. And he went on, we need to stretch the limits of our tolerance to get a settlement. If and when the parties do get around the same table next week, they'll be dealing with much tougher issues. And it appears that it's trust that they're short of at the moment. Andrew Simmons, News at 10 in Downing Street.
The government is facing a double setback tomorrow, the loss of the Monmouth by-election and new higher unemployment figures. In the Commons today, Labour said it would take years to repair the damage done by the Conservatives. The government accused Labour of making reckless promises on spending. The signs from Downing Street tonight are that the Prime Minister may be prepared to delay a general election, perhaps until next year.
Workers preparing these Rolls-Royces for sale were told in London today they were to lose their jobs. About 500 will join a national dole queue, which climbs by some 3,000 every day. It's a recession hitting south as much as north, and it leaves workers in a bitter mood.
You've got 400 tradesmen here that are never going to find jobs where you've got the same sort of skills that you got here.
Is it a bad day for Rolls-Royce?
Of course it is, isn't it? It's a bad day for us all. I mean, where will I get another job? 58.
Tomorrow's unemployment figures, expected to show a rise of about 100,000, have provided the Labour Party with a rich source of propaganda and thrown the government on the defensive. And the Liberal Democrats are exploiting the same theme.
This time, those who are losing their jobs are in the Conservative seats. There is blood running in the streets down in the south of England and in the home counties on this issue.
In the Commons, those MPs not campaigning in Monmouth joined in some knockabout electioneering, the issue public spending. The Conservative claim Labour will have to raise taxes to pay for their plans.
And I suspect, with Labour's expenditure plans in the disarray that they are, the average taxpayer's going to find himself, if Labour are elected, carried across more thresholds than Elizabeth Taylor or Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Mr Mello was accused in turn of flinging about meaningless statements and figures.
We on this side of the House are saying that we will not spend more than the economy can afford, but that we will put every penny that the economy can afford into investment and into public services. What the government's record and their forecasts show is a consistent but a completely different picture.
The Conservatives will have a safe enough majority when the votes are counted tonight, but that'll be the end of their good news for a while. Mr Major, for whom it's been business as usual today, has been told to expect to lose the Monmouth by-election tomorrow. And when he and the Chancellor got together for a weekly meeting in Downing Street this evening, they had before them also unemployment figures, which will add to the party's gloom. The news from Downing Street tonight is that the government will not be rushed either into early interest rate cuts or into an early election. John Major knows that the economy will not begin to recover until the second half of this year, and he's prepared to wait until next year, if necessary, before going for that election. Peter Allen, News at 10, Westminster.
At the Old Bailey, a disabled man has been cleared of murdering a man who tried to rob him outside his home in South London. Keith Carrera, a former sailor, had told the court that the mugger died after falling on his own knife during a struggle.
This murder trial at the Old Bailey has lasted exactly 1 week. Kenneth Carrera, a 55-year-old former sailor who's registered disabled because of asthma, has been in prison since last August. Today, the judge, Recorder Lawrence Verney, said any man who is attacked is entitled in law to defend himself and to use violent means if that's necessary. The recorder read out parts of Mr. Carrera's statement, in which he described fighting desperately to get the knife held by Michael Sargent, the man who died. The court had been told that the dead man had several previous criminal convictions, including for street robbery or mugging. He had taken alcohol, cannabis and cocaine on the night he attacked Mr. Carrera. On the other hand, the prosecution had claimed that Mr. Carrera was a man with an obsession about mugging. They say he told police, "I always wanted to do a mugger, but nothing like this." After 3 hours deliberation, a court official asked the jury if they found Mr. Carrera guilty or not guilty of murder, then of manslaughter. Not guilty, the forewoman replied twice. Mr. Carrera watched impassively. After the verdict, he left the Old Bailey without speaking to reporters. But around the South London tower block where he lived, people said he should never have been prosecuted.
He defended himself. It's either him or the other bloke. The other bloke come unstuck.
Don't you think he should have left it to the police? Isn't he acting as a bit of a vigilante?
What do you mean, left it to the police? What do you mean, left it to the police? There's no police around here when the man was defending himself. He'd have been the dead one.
Waiting for Kenneth Carrera tonight, this notice. During the trial, his counsel said he was in a life or death situation, which is all too familiar nowadays on the streets of Britain. David Rose, News at 10, South London.
The European Commission has called for a total ban on tobacco advertising by next year. The proposal, still to be voted on, could affect events which are now sponsored by the big tobacco companies. The Coronary Prevention Group said the proposed move could be the best news for public health since cigarette advertising was banned on television here nearly 30 years ago.
Already, tobacco sports advertising is muted to meet the stringent requirements of some countries. The European ban would outlaw all advertising. McLaren, sponsored by Marlboro, would probably have to repaint their cars, currently in the tobacco company's livery. Tobacco companies would still be able to sponsor sporting events like cricket, but they couldn't use logos associated with their cigarettes. Such a sweeping ban would hit hard at the £12 million sport receives annually from tobacco sponsorship. But anti-smoking lobbies say hundreds of thousands of lives are at stake. They say tobacco companies need to recruit 1,000 children a day in Europe to replace the smokers they have killed. Some countries like France, Italy, Portugal, Norway and Spain have already opted for a total ban. Britain favours voluntary controls, as does Ireland and Holland. Health ministers say tobacco consumption here has dropped by 29% over 12 years, and Holland has seen a 41% drop.
Our approach has achieved very dramatic reductions in tobacco consumption, and I think we need to be quite careful before we go over to a different formula that hasn't achieved a health gain that is anywhere near what we've achieved in this country by our methods.
Critics say the government can achieve its target of reducing the number of smokers to 21% only by backing the proposed ban.
It offers them the opportunity to show that they take seriously their own target that adult smoking in this country should be cut by 1/3 by the end of the century. It offers them the challenge to come off the fence and show whose side they're on.
Sports like snooker will have to wait and see whether the government decides to take all trace of advertising off our screens.
And the deadline passed at noon today for those wishing to bid for a part of ITV. There were altogether 40 applications for the new franchises, though 3 of the existing ITV companies, Scottish, Border and Central, went unchallenged in their regions. How much money the applicants bid hasn't been disclosed, but under the rules, those 3 could have kept their franchises for next to nothing. Thames Television said tonight that even if it keeps its London weekday franchise, 220 jobs will go over the next 2 years.
Sorry about loss of sound there. ICI, Britain's biggest manufacturing company, found itself talked about as a target for a takeover tonight after it emerged that a mystery buy of 20 million shares yesterday was the Hanson Group. The stock building was said to be for investment purposes, though some city analysts expect Lord Hanson to bid for the company. ICI shares closed at 1,218 pence, up 60 pence on the day.
A mere whisper of the name Lord Hanson can put fear into a British boardroom. Tonight, one of the world's most accomplished takeover experts is threatening the mightiest, ICI. His company has enough money in the bank, £8 billion, to buy it outright. Only Hanson could dream of taking over such a commanding height of the economy. He knows ICI is vulnerable because it suffered in the recession, and Hanson is not afraid of big deals. The most famous was in 1986. The Hanson Company bought Imperial Tobacco for £2.5 billion. It sold off some Imperial subsidiaries like Courage and raised £2 billion. Profits from what was left paid off Hanson's remaining £500 million investment in just 3 years. Imperial effectively cost nothing. Yesterday, the shares in ICI cost £240 million. Today, they've gone up, giving Hanson an overnight profit of more than £5 million. Shares in the chemicals giant should continue to rise as the economy recovers from recession, and Hanson may eventually sell up and take the profit. But some analysts believe that Hanson will bid, and if successful, take over ICI and pull it apart. It's a chilling thought for Sir Dennis Henderson, the chairman of ICI, who can only wait and guess at Hanson's next move.
We return now to our story about the bidding for ITV licences, but those who did bid won't know the result until October.
Okay, 58, take 1. Action.
On the set of Taggart tonight, one of ITV's top detective series, there was relief that Scottish Television would keep its franchise. More surprising is the fact that Central, which broadcasts Spitting Image, is also unopposed in the lucrative Midlands area.
We are very popular in our region. We have a lot of support. And I think that is why others have chosen not to take us on. There are other ITV companies which are much weaker than we are for various reasons. And so I think it's a credit to us that people have seen that we're a tough act to take on.
To some extent, the TV auction has become a complex game of bid and counterbid. In the north, Granada is the target of a consortium, North West TV, which includes Yorkshire and Tyne Tees. Tyne Tees, part owned by Yorkshire, is the target of North East TV, backed by Granada and Border. Some bidders are going for more than one company. Thames and TVS are under threat from both CPV TV and from Carlton Television. TVAM is facing two rival bids, one from Daybreak, backed by ITN, and the other from Sunrise, backed by London Weekend Television. Among those arriving at the Independent Television Commission, the former Cabinet Minister Lord Pryor bidding for Anglia, and representatives from Carlton Communications bidding for Thames. So what did they think would determine the winner?
You have to offer top quality programmes. Therefore, you have to budget to make top quality programmes. If you don't do that, you don't attract the viewers. If you don't attract the viewers, you don't attract the advertising, and therefore you haven't got a broadcasting service that you would want to have.
But if you don't make the highest bid, you don't get the franchise.
Perfectly true.
Thames Chief Executive Richard Dunn left saying little about their plans.
Can you tell us what you're going to do about the Carlton competition?
No, I'm going back to tell my staff what we're doing about our job.
Job losses are likely whoever wins the franchise, and there could be many changes in the way television programmes are made.
Although the would-be owners will have to pass a quality threshold, the franchises will ultimately be decided on who offers to pay the government the most money. Only when the sealed envelopes containing the cash bids are opened will the real shape of the new ITV be known. Libby Vina, News at 10, West London.
The Chief Constable of Derbyshire says spending cuts are seriously affecting the ability of his officers to combat rising crime, and community policing, he says, has become a myth. A report in part 2. Plus, Manchester United cap England's return to European soccer with the Cup Winners' Cup. And forgive the informality, ma'am, she's just pleased to see you. That's in a couple of minutes.
Excuse me. How's it?
Get the picture.
To celebrate. Now you can cook your own recipes with Quorn, the delicious, healthy alternative to meat.
This is the latest British gas kitchen with fully fitted carpet, running water, plenty of storage space, a good larder, and here's the cooker. With instant heat and adjustable flames, it's now as easy to cook outdoors as it is inside. We can even supply you with a silvery moon. For more information on British Gas barbecues, gas lights and other outdoor products, the natural place to go is your British Gas showroom. Gas, the heat of the moment.
Vittel, not vital. It's a small French country town, much like any other. They say Vittel water contains a unique balance of minerals and trace elements. Could be. There is one thing about Vittel water. It's still. Which is more than you can say for the people who drink it. Vittel, not vital?
The Chief Constable of Derbyshire, Mr. John Newing, saw his police authority today about spending cuts, which he says seriously affect his force's ability to respond to rising crime. In his annual report, Mr. Newing said community policing in Derbyshire had become a myth. The public still wanted it, he'd like to provide it, but he didn't have the men to do the job.
Police emergency, can I help you?
Policewoman Sandy Wilde answers one of 100,000 projected calls to Derby Police this year. It's not what she wants to do, nor is it what Derbyshire Police want to use her for.
I'll get somebody to you as soon as I can.
Yet she is one of many beat bobbies now seconded to the communications room to fill in for civilians who have been axed in the latest cutbacks. Normally Sandy Wilde is mixing with her public, her patch included this Derbyshire school.
Because each time you go, you're almost going as a fresh face again, and therefore a lot of the public confidence and the relationship that you've had has been lost.
Reported crime in Derby is up by 24%, but even the scene of crimes department has been hit. They're down to 7, and sometimes it takes 2 days for them to attend an incident. The disappearance of the bobby on the beat has already registered amongst the public.
The only time we ever see one around here is if she's been in trouble.
Do you think it's worrying? In a minute. A lack of deterrent because
well, there needs to be something. There needs to be something to stop vandals or whatever that happens.
Walking the beat? No, I'm afraid not. I can't just bring it to mind.
It's a deliberate policy taken by the Chief Constable to cut back on community policing.
I think that by telling them the truth, I'm not raising their expectations to the level where they actually expect to see that police officer. I believe we make more problems for ourselves by not speaking the truth. I'm looking hard at what we do in line with what the people of Derbyshire's priorities are, and saying, let's try to deliver a good service in the essential areas rather than dissipate our resources across a whole range of things and not deliver anything very well.
Priority is still given to city centre beat patrols, though officers are now concerned they won't receive sufficient support if they respond to an incident at any pub or club.
With so few of us knocking about the city centre and then more demand for us, we're not going to be able to give probably as good as we'd like to give to the public.
The numbers are low. We get a lot of jobs for the few of us. With the jobs come paperwork and all that goes with it, and sometimes public perhaps don't see us as much as we would like and as much as they would like.
And according to Derbyshire's Chief Constable, policing is unlikely to improve unless large amounts of cash are pumped into the police service nationally. Terry Lloyd, News at 10, Derbyshire.
British relief workers who've been to Iraq say 1/3 children there could die if they don't get adequate medical supplies, food and clean water. The team took some supplies with them and shot their own pictures of what they found in Iraqi hospitals. This report by Jeremy Thompson at ITN.
This is the tragic face of post-war Iraq. A 5-month-old boy wasting away from gastroenteritis. Only minutes after the British medical aid team had taken these pictures, he was dead. Another Iraqi mother left to mourn. This hospital in the Kurdish city of Erbil is packed with children suffering from cholera, typhoid and malnutrition. Months of conflict have left the wards stripped of most basic equipment. There's no fresh water, no usable blood, barely 6 hours of electricity a day. But as the medical aid team from Britain toured Iraq's hospitals, they discovered the greatest need was for food. They'd taken in 11 tons of drinking water, medicated milk for babies and medical supplies. But they say that's only a fraction of what's required.
Well, I think the most important thing is to get those embargoes lifted so that more food goes in. We need about £100,000 for each hospital in Iraq of relief supplies, and we also need to get doctors and nurses in there. But above all, food has got to go in, because without food, the medicines simply don't work.
It's the same throughout Iraq. Cities devastated by Allied bombing and civil war, sewage and power supplies disrupted, water contaminated, leading to a rapid spread of disease. In the city of Karbala, much of the main hospital has been wrecked by shell fire. Doctors gratefully opened an ultrasound machine donated by the British aid workers, but told them that unless they got sufficient food and medicine, 360,000 Iraqi children could be dead by the end of this year. For some, even that may not help. By the time this tiny baby received milk, she was too weak to drink it.
France has a woman Prime Minister for the first time in the country's history. Edith Cresson, the former European Affairs Minister, replaces Michel Rocard. He resigned early today after 3 years in office.
20,000 Manchester United fans were in Rotterdam tonight to watch their team beat Barcelona 2-1 to win the European Cup Winners' Cup. It was a triumphant return to Europe for United, their first cup final there after the lifting of the ban on English clubs, which followed the Heysel Stadium disaster in 1985.
Rotterdam.
Cricket, the West Indies piled on the runs against Worcestershire today. At close of play at Worcester, they were 376 for 6. Phil Simmons got 134, Viv Richards 131. Ian Botham took 2 for 83.
The night's main news again. The talks on the future of Northern Ireland will go ahead on Monday after a meeting between Unionist MPs and Mr Major at Downing Street this afternoon. But there's no guarantee of overall progress, and it's thought there'll still be problems at the stage when the Dublin government enters the discussions. And the European Commission has proposed a total ban on cigarette advertising by next year.
The Queen, who's in the United States, has been finding out about the American way of life. This morning, as she toured one of the poorest areas of the capital, Washington, one woman dispensed with all the formalities and just gave her a hug. This evening, her host, President Bush, gave her a taste of that American obsession, baseball.
The Queen came to Dodge City today. That's the nickname of this Washington district, best known for drugs, gangs and shootings. She came to see a project that helps poorer people buy their first home. And it was there that Alice Frazier did what she's been hoping to do for weeks. She hugged the Queen. Alice had been to a rehearsal on what was proper, but forgot everything, insisting on introducing her whole family, on telling the Queen that her granddaughter was called Laverne Queen, and that her house was her palace. The Queen didn't quite know how to take her, and then the phone kept ringing. It was time to go, but Alice wouldn't have it. She needed photos for her album. In the end, sadly, no, the Queen couldn't stay for the fried chicken and iced tea Alice had made. Nearby in this district, where the main cause of death among young blacks is gunfire, the Queen saw cause for hope. A youth club run by the police, which has put the energies of teenagers to better use. Quite a contrast to later in the day, when the Queen seemed less interested in a celebration of British film and television. Perhaps she was just remembering Alice.
I can sit down and talk to my grandchildren, you know, and tell them I'll make the Queen.
Bill Neely, News at 10, Washington.
And that's the News at 10. From Trevor and from me, a very good evening to you.
The battle for ITV is about to begin, but will the viewer be the biggest loser? Could favourites like Coronation Street disappear in a TV auction worth millions to the government? Or will new companies bring fresh ideas to the screen? Today, after months of tight security, the ITV companies and their rivals will deliver secret bids to the commission which will decide who wins. Bugs, bids and bye-bye blind date tomorrow at 8:30 on ITV.
A look at the ITV National Weather Forecast next tonight, followed by a roundup of today's Thames regional news with Robin Houston. Then we continue the film Von Ryan's Express.
What's with all the French books then?
Well, the hotel started a management course for people interested in working abroad.
And you think they'll send you?
Yes, I do.
They did send you.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. What was that?
That management course paid off. You're a conference manager in Paris.
Tony, is this one of your jokes? Tony?
He's still in England sorting mail. Has done since you left.
What is this?
This is the future. Here, I'll show you.
Paris! I can't believe it.
Merci de votre hospitalité.
Oh, je vous en prie. Au plaisir de vous revoir. Oh, I can speak French.
Where you been? Paris?
Make the most of your future by training. Call 0800 444 246.
This is the new BMW 3 Series. It's a car for children. But why? Can this child appreciate the sophistication of the new 24-valve 6-cylinder engine? Can he grasp why its perfect balance gives near-perfect road holding? Does he care that it exceeds the world's toughest safety standard by 36%? Hardly. And no, it's not merely because there's so much room in the back. It's because this new BMW is designed to be recyclable, a fact that will matter more to him than to you. So by the time he's grown up, this BMW 3 Series could be something completely different. Indeed, that's what it is. Today.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on.
The original Debenhams 12-hour spectacular. Millions of pounds off thousands of things.
Red can often be a sign of danger, like tiny traces of blood when brushing. Nature's warning that your gums could be healthier. Now there's a toothpaste with a unique combination of 2 antibacterial agents to give your gums twice the protection of our ordinary fluoride toothpaste. Mentadent P Gum Health Formula. Because healthy teeth need healthy gums. New Mentadent P for gums, for teeth, for life today.
Wisk liquid now comes in a handy carton pack. Your colours won't go flat, but the pack will.
Ah, Excellency. I thought the first 50 miles in pink with the rosebud motif, or avocado with the little purple chariots.
Very nice. Just one thing there.
Yeah?
Where's the door?
The door?
How else do we get into Scotland to apply for shares in Hydroelectric and Scottish Power, the 2 Scottish electricity companies?
Hey, relax. You can register for a prospectus from anywhere in Britain. Just pick up the phone.
All right. Make it 6 foot thicker.
Soon you will be able to apply for shares in the 2 Scottish electricity companies. To qualify for incentives, register for a prospectus. Phone 041 414 1414, Scots or not.
Good evening. There will be a little bit of rain around tomorrow. The trick is knowing just how little. And at the moment, it looks as if it should be little enough for us to describe the day as mostly dry, but it will also be cool and breezy for us all. As I said, there will be some patchy rain around. You perhaps wouldn't expect any rain with this picture. High pressure dominating the scene around Britain, but it's just to the west, and that means cool northerly winds right across the country, and those northerly winds are carrying a fair amount of cloud. So let's come back to tonight's picture in more detail then. A generally cloudy picture, I think, through the night. A thicker band of cloud edging in across the country, and patchy rain turning up here and there, mostly on the high ground. Temperatures not too low, but there could be a touch of ground frost if you're sheltered from those northerly winds. On to tomorrow then, there's a thicker band of cloud again, really down the middle of the country, I suppose you could say. And again, there'll be a lot of dry weather even beneath that cloud, even the odd glimpse of sun. But where the cloud's thickest, perhaps over the high ground of Wales and Scotland, there'll be some drizzly rain coming out of it too. On both sides of that, the chance of a bit more in the way of sunshine. The east coast seeing the odd shower turn up too. Down in the southwest, I think, of England and perhaps western parts of Northern Ireland, it's a bit brighter there, and that's where it'll be warmest, temperatures scraping up to around 14 or 15. But if you're out in those breezes, as today, it's going to feel really quite chilly, especially on the east coast. There's a sunset time, so tomorrow then, and here's a summary.
Good evening. There have been more job losses in the southeast. 500 jobs are to go at the Rolls-Royce car plant in West London. The company say there's been a slump in car sales because of the recession. The losses come on the eve of the latest employment figures, which are expected to show a big increase in the number of jobless.
The jobs are to go at the Mulliner Park Ward factory in Acton, where the top-of-the-range Rolls-Royce Corniche is built. Rolls-Royce sales have halved this year. The company says it'll make big savings by moving most of the operation to its headquarters in Crewe. 500 jobs will be lost over the next 9 months. Only 100 staff will remain on the coach building side. How long have you worked for the company for?
35 years. It's a bit of a blow. Obviously, I'm devastated, but I think it was inevitable in the end.
I doubt if I'll get another job because I'm over 50.
It's the finest car that's produced in the world. And if people still want cars of this quality, this is the only place it can be built.
Unions believe Rolls-Royce sales will pick up after the recession, and they've vowed to fight the closure.
The Conservatives have won the balance of power on Brent Council, which previously had no overall control. It follows the defection of 2 Labour councillors. Pauline Niaga and Nkechi Amalu-Johnson formed an independent group this evening. They voted with Tories at tonight's council meeting to elect a Conservative mayor who has the vital casting vote. The Conservatives now hold 31 seats, Labour 26, the Liberal Democrats 6 and the Independents 2. A man who underwent training to defend himself against street crime has been cleared of killing a mugger. Kenneth Carrera, who's 56, said his attacker, Michael Sargent, fell on his own knife during the attack on the Waterbury estate in Clapham. The prosecution claimed Mr. Carrera had killed deliberately because he had an almost obsessional hatred of muggers. Today, an Old Bailey jury cleared him of murder and manslaughter. Meanwhile, a father who killed a man with a single punch after he racially abused his son has walked free from court. Reading Crown Court was told that Huntley Hines from Whitley fractured Andrew Smith's skull after he made a racist comment to his child. He admitted manslaughter and assault. The court heard he didn't intend to seriously injure his victim, and he was sentenced to 18 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years. A gunman has been found guilty of holding 150 people hostage, including members of Gulf royal families, during a 10-hour siege at a West End nightclub. The Old Bailey was told Hani El Reyes raided Tokyo Joe's in Piccadilly with a dummy bomb strapped to his waist and 2 rifles. He'll be sentenced after medical reports. A man has been remanded in custody for a month, charged with kidnapping a woman clerk at the Midland Bank in Brentwood. David Stanley White is also accused of demanding £100,000 with menaces. The battle to run the capital's weekday television service has begun in earnest. The deadline for applications was noon today. 2 rival companies are bidding for the licence for the London region, in addition to the current holders, Thames Television.
The London weekday franchise, held by Thames for the last 23 years, is the jewel in the crown, because it's the biggest both in size and advertising revenue. Competition comes from Carlton TV, headed by Michael Green of Carlton Communications. They say they'll invest £80 million in new programmes a year. They're also bidding for the franchise held by TVS. The other competitor is CPV TV, headed by Richard Branson and David Frost. They say they plan to make good programmes popular and popular programmes good. They're also bidding to run franchises held by TVS and Anglia. Thames say they've a proven record of high-quality programmes, listing 160 titles in their bid. They aim to build on their strength the company is not bidding for any other franchise.
Well, I think Thames Television has put in the best bid that it possibly can in terms of quality of programmes, diversity, and the best financial bid that we can. I'm anxious, and all my colleagues have been, to get the right cost structure for producing the highest quality programmes across the range for the London people. We know that we've got that equation right. We have been in the business of broadcasting and only broadcasting for a long time.
We've put in a very serious, very well-planned application. It's full of new programme ideas. It's well-backed in terms of its financial resources. We have brought together a very capable team of people, and I think that our proposition will be...
bidders.
A bill to clamp down on the urban clutter of street signs and poles has been given its formal first reading in the Commons. Kensington Conservative MP Dudley Fishburn says his street furniture bill would rid London and other cities of what he described as a tangle of bossy signs in clashing colours. There's a new generation of the 70s teen idols, the Osmonds, in town. The original Osmonds took the British charts by storm with a string of hits. Now the Osmond boys, the second generation, are in London recording a new album. They're hoping they can repeat the success of their father Alan Osmond and his brothers. And the Thames weather. It'll be cloudy this evening with patchy rain. It'll feel quite cool, with the temperature as low as 4 Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Thursday will be dry, bright day in most places, but towards the east of London there'll be 1 or 2 showers. The high, 14 Celsius. And that's the Thames News on Wednesday, May the 15th. Good night.
Entertainment tomorrow on ITV. At 8, an undercover operation for the bill.
Backup for Oakley Road required now. OK, all systems go.
Leaping into action at 8, while at 9.
Wow. I'm going to this black tie thing tomorrow and I had to try it on. I want to hire Mackenzie Black.
Why don't you come to work for me?
I love law firms.
Will the LA lawyers get their new attorney? Find out tomorrow on ITV.